Hey guys, what is going on? We are already at round 7 of Super Rugby. It feels like it's flown by this year, but the competition is really heating up after round 6. You saw a couple teams like the Crusaders, bam, jump to that next level, the intensity, the D, it was all up. And I think that's going to continue this week. We got some pretty mouth-watering fixtures. The one I have highlighted, Hurricanes versus Waratahs. I put up a poll. You're all still voting, but it seems like that's the one you want me to react to. And without trying to sway the poll, I definitely agree. I think that's the most interesting clash. We'll talk about why in a second. You're also going to have the Brumbies taking on the Highlanders. Not quite the hapless Highlanders. They're a good side, but they're not finishing too well. Are the Brumbies going to put them to the sword? We'll talk about that. And then you have the Crusaders versus Moana Pasifika. Some interesting team changes for the Crusaders. I'm going to go through the squad in a sec. And then we finish off with the Reds versus the Force, a little Aussie derby. Lots of Australian players vying for contention in the Wallabies. They're putting their hands up for a jersey, a gold jersey, so they can play the Lions later this year. You know, I made a video last week recapping Super Rugby Round 6, and it was a provocative thumbnail. It was asking, are the Aussie forwards better than the Kiwi forwards right now? Got some pretty interesting debate going on in the chat, which I enjoyed reading. I think you could make a case that the Aussies are playing better than the Kiwis right now. But let's see if the New Zealanders in the forward pack can lift their form. And that's top of mind when I look at this game. Hurricanes versus Waratahs. Now, why do I think this is the most interesting game? Well, I think it's a very tight game. You have two teams that are right in the middle of the ladder. The Tars are vulnerable to me. They started with a hiss and a roar. They showed vulnerability against the Reds. They did bounce back against the Brumbies. But I just wonder if they could be there for the taking as the season progresses, as the intensity lifts. I'm not sure that their place is as secure as, say, the Queensland Reds, who I'm a bit more confident in. Now, the Hurricanes started not too well this year. Crusaders beat them at home. They really struggled to put away the Highlanders. They just didn't look clinical in their finishing whatsoever. But things have changed. The reinforcements have arrived. The cavalry is here. The All Blacks might be coming to save the day. Like, take a look at this front row. Xavier Numia, capped. Asafo Amua, the most important return. He was out in the first few rounds. Don't forget that. He's a wrecking ball. He's doing better in the lineouts. He's phenomenal around the park. The mobility, the ball handling skills, unbelievable for a man of his size. And he hits like a ton of bricks. Well, he's back at 2. Who's next to him? Tyrell Lomax, another All Black. So suddenly you have a front row that is just absolutely looking like concrete wrapped in barbed wire. I mean, damn, that is a good front row. Not only that, move on to the Lucies. Duplessis, Karifi, probably the form number 7 in the tournament so far. Have to put Artie Savia in there. Some of the Aussies are playing pretty well too, but Karifi's really caught the eye. And then you have Peter Lakai, capped as an All Black, played against France last year for the All Blacks, acquitted himself beautifully. That's a hell of a 7-8 combo with Cam Roygaard passing the ball. Holy moly. Ruben Love's back at 15, finding good form. Here's where I'm going with this, guys. That's a very, very different looking team to the one that the Crusaders put away in the opening round. This team has a lot of upside. However, I've been watching the Hurricanes for decades, and I remember when Jonah Lomu, Christian Cullen, and Tana Umaga were running around in the back line, and they still couldn't win a title. So they are really the big underperformers of Super Rugby historically when you consider the riches of backline talent they've always had and how stuffed with All Blacks they invariably are. But that's a hell of a team. And they're playing at home in Wellington, so can they account for these boys? I mean, that's a good-looking team too. I look at Jorgensen at the back. He has just been absolutely cutting everyone to shreds, whether he's on the wing or playing at fullback. And you have Suali'i too, who just debuted for the Wallabies last year. He's going to be out there against the Lions. This bloke has X factor for days. A great, I don't want to say steal from the NRL. I mean, he willingly went, but, you know, a lot of players have gone over to league. It really is more the premier code in New Zealand. A lot of players that could have had a union career have been lured by league. So good for the Australian Rugby Union to get one back. I think he's a great pickup for them. I think he looks the goods. And then you look at their front row. And again, I talked about how the Aussie forwards are playing very well this year. 5 teams have gone into 4. The talent pool's not so diluted. They want that Lions Guernsey, right? They have a carrot on the string, these Aussie forwards. You look at Angus Bell, great player. You look at Taniela Tupou, great player. Stamina issues, perhaps. Can he go 80 minutes if he has to? Not sure about that. But that is a mouth-watering front row clash. You basically got a Wallaby front row and an All Black front row going head-to-head. So I got to be patriotic and pick the Hurricanes to win this, but it could go either way. The Tars, when they have clicked this year, have looked absolutely fantastic. But as I mentioned, even though the Canes got off to a slow start, do not be surprised if they claw their way into that top 6 as the competition heats up and we head towards the playoffs. Very possible. So that's my clash of the round. We got the Brumbies. Here's their team. No one's too surprising. Good to see Tom Wright at fullback. He's another player who's been doing very well. Hooper there at 6. Valentini at 8. Rock solid team. Rock solid team. Underperformed against the Waratahs last week. They're going to want to bounce back. They got the star power to do it. Iki Tau, he's a hell of a center. So I like that Brumbies team. And I look at the Highlanders. What jumps out to me is that Tavatava Nawai, who's been one of the form New Zealand players, they tried him on the wing. And he was very good. But I think they did that, moving him out of midfield to the wing, because they just needed better finishing, right? They couldn't finish against the Hurricanes. Even when they had, I want to say, more than 90% possession in the final 10 minutes of that game against the Hurricanes. They threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the Hurricanes. They still couldn't score a try. So they thought, well, let's see if maybe Tavatava Nawai a bit further out wide and a bit more space. Is he going to be, the secret weapon to unlock things? I think they've reverted to putting him in the midfield because he's just guaranteed to dent that gain line, get that go-forward ball that they need. Oh, boy. Look, it's a solid team, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to pick the Brumbies on this one. Pains me to say it. Aussies are motivated. They're at home. Yep, picking the Brumbies. Ouch. Ah, yes. You may have heard of this team, the Canterbury Crusaders. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have won a couple of championships over the years. Possibly even 7 in a row not that long ago. I'm not sure if they're back to their best, but they're trending in the right direction after that demolition of the Blues at Eden Park. That was a pretty special performance. And it was pretty special because I don't think they hit top gear. Like, I do not think that was a classic Crusaders performance. And yet, I never thought they were going to lose. So looking at this team, I am terribly intrigued. Speaking of All Black front rows, George Bauer, Fletcher Newell, those are All Black props. Moana knew the little man, and I say that respectfully. I mean, he's a bigger man than me, but, for a hooker, he's sort of in that Kevin Mialamu mode. Not the biggest guy, but the biggest heart, the biggest leg drive. Man, he had a blinder last week. It's good to see him out there. Obviously, we want to see Cody Taylor starting again, but if you look at the impacts there, Cody Taylor is on the bench, so that's good. Not too much severe damage done to Taylor. He was missing last week, but good to see he's in the mix. And man, I mean, this team is just hot. Scott Barrett, your All Black captain, Cullen Grace, terrific link man, and maybe the biggest talking point, Ethan Blackadder is back. I'm just taking him off my All Blacks watch until he plays a month consistently. I'm a fan of Blackadder. I think he is a relentless workhorse with a very complementary skill set to some of the other power athletes running around New Zealand. I think his game actually suits a guy like Adi Savia and Wallace Satiti if they play in conjunction. But until he proves his durability, I just can't get too excited. I'm sorry, guys. You probably agree with me, actually. And he's a very divisive player. He's one of the most divisive players in New Zealand. I read your comments. He's got fans. I'm one of them, but it's the staying power. Anyway, Glad to see him back, suiting up for the Crusaders. But the biggest change, 9 and 10, so Noah Hotham, who of course was capped for the All Blacks last year, he's going to start at 9. James O'Connor, that wily Wallaby, he deserves a start at 10. So what does this mean? Does this mean that Taha Kemara, the young pivot, is on the outs? I don't think so. I think this is a one-off thing. I think they're just going to do it this week. Kemara's had a lot of minutes. Let him just, take a breather. He's not even on the bench. Rivers Rayana, another great first 5, young player coming up through the New Zealand development ranks. He's on the bench. So Kemara's going to sit it out. I just think O'Connor has earned a spot. The way he came on, Mr. Cool, Calm, and Collected last week, put in that beautiful pinpoint cross kick so that Macca Springer could dot down for a try. It was just a little example, but it illustrated his composure, his vision, his heads-up play. He deserves a spot. He could play his way into the Wallabies this year. I could see him playing against the Lions for the second time in his career. You just know what you're going to get with James O'Connor. He's been running around since he was 17 years old. He's in his mid-30s now. He looks great. He looks like he's in his 20s still. So I'm happy to see it. And he's a Kiwi boy. His parents are Kiwis. It's good to see him play for a New Zealand team. I think this was his dream. He said that. He always wanted to. And he's not phoning this stint in. I feel like O'Connor is really bringing it. He's not just collecting a paycheck. I think he came to play. So good on him. You go through that back line. Macca Springer, who, of course, scored 5 tries against the Force. He's out there. David Havili, who was close to the man of the match last week. Whatever you think about him in an all-black jersey, he sometimes plays like Superman when he's in a Crusaders jersey. Dallas McLeod's been solid at center. You got impact from Levi Elmua, who's probably better coming off the bench. I don't think I see the same consistency in his game as someone like Dallas McLeod, who might be less of a wrecking ball, but I think just makes better decisions. Chafiaki was a try-scoring machine last week. Will Jordan's the best fullback in the competition. I'm spending a lot of time on this team because my mouth is just watering looking at it. Like, damn, that is a good team. I'm sorry, but I don't give Moana Pasifika a chance. Even though Ardie Savia is back, I think it could be a competitive game. They're not a one-man team. In fact, at the very least, they're a 3-man team. I want to single out Miracle Failangi, played brilliantly against the Chiefs. Never stopped last week. Never stopped. Even after getting demolished in the first half, he just showed up. I have so much respect for that guy. He's a nice complement to Savia. So the loose forward mix certainly will be better. The rest of the forwards fairly similar. And look, Pellegrini, the number 10, is an amazing pivot with a point of difference with his kicking game. He just does real damage with his goal kicking, with his territorial kicking, with his short kicking game. He is one of the best kicking first 5s on planet Earth. Not to jinx him or overhype him, but, as long as he's out there pulling the strings, they've always got a shot, but I just think the Crusaders will be too good, too much class. Moving on, Queensland Reds. Great-looking team. Rock solid. Tate McDermott's on the bench. He's been looking wonderful at 9. I mean, what can you really say about these blokes? That is a good-looking team. I feel like that is probably the best Aussie team running around right now. I believe they're 3rd on the table. Not much to say. I just think they're solid. Salakai Loto at 5. He's been in the thick of it. One of those Aussie forwards I mentioned who's really standing up, wants to be in the Wallabies squad. Rock and roll. They look good. And the Force, yeah, I don't think the Force will be able to beat the Reds. I really don't. Nice 9-10 combo. Nick White, obviously an experienced Wallaby. Donaldson absolutely ripped the Ndrua to shreds, and he's goal kicking well. I just think, I just think the Reds will be over the top of these guys. So there you go. That's my projection forward for round 7. I've given you my tips. I will be back live streaming after one of the games. Looks like it's going to be the Hurricanes and the Waratahs. I'm very excited about that. If so, hoping the poll stays the same, and I'll be seeing you guys in about 24 hours. Until then, like, subscribe, look after yourself, do some self-care today. It's a crazy world out there. Love you guys. I'll see you for another one real soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.